Welcome to the Two Sons Podcast. Happy Wednesday, everybody. I hope all of you guys are having a great week so far. You know what, Luke? I was super bummed about 2/3 of the way through that episode this week.
Why?
Because I was like, this is the filler episode.
Oh, yeah. It's here.
And then finally, we got something of real importance at the end that made it at least worthwhile.
Yes. Yeah. No, I totally agree. Actually, though, probably the biggest event in Star Wars history, Lizzo.
Lizzo.
Knights Grogu as, what is it called? A Knight of the Ancient Order of Independent Regencies.
Yes.
So probably the most profound thing we've ever seen in Star Wars history.
And all he had to do is kind of tug on her dress a little bit a bunch of times.
Din was like, he doesn't want to be held. And he like triple front flips into her arms. That was hilarious.
Dude, Jack Black is a total vibe too.
Dude, Jack Black, okay, I kind of not okay. I was very curious to see what you thought of this episode. Overall, again, I liked it, but like Jack Black made that episode for me.
That's so funny.
I think
he was the one thing that I really found redeemable about that, and then all of the jokes that I first of all, okay, a couple things. I generally hated the storyline of this episode.
Oh, okay.
Like
the
idea of the droids like going to a bar and hanging out, like whatever. Like the Nepenthe thing. But like, and then obviously the filler storyline. All of that was kind of weird. The Game of Thrones, or not the Game of Thrones, the Hunger Games vibe that you picked up in this episode was definitely strong. But I thought that the Jack Black thing, like the Jack Black personality thing, like kind of saved it. And then the chemistry between Bo-Katan and Din Djarin is like really cool. Like there's such like cool. Like Bo-Katan seems so like this fucking guy at the beginning, and now like you can tell there's like a mutual respect there because he kind of saved her when she ran into that ambush with all the Imperial starfighters while she saved him on Mandalore. So there's chemistry there. All the jokes by Din Djarin, like kind of talking about the droids, like that kind of stuff saved it for me. But I'd be lying if I didn't tell you I didn't enjoy it. It was storyline necessarily
90% filler. Just for a small token of the advancement of the storyline, aka Bo-Katan, right? So, do you just want to jump into it and just talk about the big thing at the end?
Yeah, we should probably start there. The one thing I wanted to say about Jack Black too, before we move on there, is like you and I have kind of like Jack Black just in general at this phase of his life is such a vibe.
Yes.
Luke sent me this video on TikTok the other day, and it was just like him and some other musician like belting out, what's the name of the song? I Just Want to Fall in Love.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's like so into it. And like, it just kind of reminds me of like Jack Black has reached a phase in his life where he's like completely immune to shame and he's probably always been that way, but like he genuinely is just like, I'm going to do what I want to do.
He just does his thing.
Yeah.
Like he's
unapologetically him.
Oh yeah, exactly. Which is, I think that's why we like dogs. Not saying that Jack Black is a dog. Complete sidebar over here, but like I always say this, like dogs are unapologetically themselves. Like that's why we like them. You know
crazy.
what I mean? Like that's what it's like. My dog Lola, like she just gets excited for no reason, and she just starts to like stomp around my house, and I always just make fun of her and call her crazy for it. But like no, like Jack Black is unapologetically himself, and I think that's why like everybody loves him. Like I don't know of anybody who doesn't like Jack Black. Like I really don't. The whole entire time I was watching that episode.
100% approval rating.
100%, 101%. Ned Schneebly, if you will, from School of Rock. That's who he impersonates to get the teaching job. So like, I don't know. When I saw Jack Black, I just like got so excited. And what was so cool is him and Lizzo just completely leaned into the characters that they're playing. Like, I'm not a huge Lizzo fan for no reason at all. Like, I don't dislike Lizzo, but I just don't really care. Like, I'm not a big into famous person. Like, I'm not into famous people. But Jack Black, I'm down.
Luke's not into famous people.
Yeah, which is why I'll never be famous. Like, I don't want to be.
Well, dude, the overall like vibe of the whole situation too, where it's like, oh yeah, none of us work, all we do is party because the droids do all the work.
And they knew how ridiculous it was, and you could tell that there's just kind of like they're just leaning into it.
Oh
yeah. They had one other not cameo, but a big actor. And
the dude who got in trouble.
It was this, the scientist from Back to the Future. His name's What's his name? Christopher Lloyd.
Yes.
Yeah. So that was cool to see. Like, if I was a famous person, I feel like I would just reach out to Star Wars and be like, hey, like, I'll be in your shows for free. I literally just want to be a part of the Star Wars universe. Like, that would be dope, right?
Oh, absolutely.
I
think that like literally like there's got to be a line of 100 celebrities that have contacted Kathleen Kennedy in some way, shape, or form through their agent. That's like, I don't care if I'm literally in the back of a bar like playing Sabak. And, like I want to be in the Star Wars
Sabak
episode. Sabak.
No, like literally, like some of them are probably like, I'll do it for $50,000, real cheap, and then I'd be like, I'll pay you $50,000.
Yeah, you're like approach a lady. It's like, I want to empty my savings to be in a Star Wars episode.
I want to be a droid. You don't even see my face. I'm just like in an R2
I'll
unit,
be sipping on Nepenthe.
Nepenthe. Okay, let's talk about the big thing.
No. I have one other thing.
Okay.
You brought up dogs and their craziness. This is a true story that just happened. Okay, so like obviously you see this part of the setup. Some of you Hoops Tonight listeners are very familiar with this setup. Well, basically this is my guest bedroom, right? So it's like a small bedroom. It's probably 12 feet by 10 feet, 12 feet by 12 feet.
Yeah.
Something like that. Small bedroom, right? So all I have is like acoustic foam on the walls around me. And then in front of me is just a clusterfuck of technology, right? So like there's a Mac right here. There's a Zoom box, which is basically like a podcast mic hub here. There's the camera, which is on a tripod, and it's like a fancy camera. There's I have four different
sets of lights.
4 different lighting units. One of them is a double lighting unit, so there's like tons of lighting. I have a monitor on the back wall that I use when I'm like doing shows with
which
Colin
is literally
Cowherd.
Stretching out to like half of the room. It's ridiculous.
Well, so I needed to like position the monitor like directly behind the camera, so it's like a teleprompter, right?
There's
so we
also
have
5 guitars in here.
There's 5 guitars in here, and that's not all of my guitars because we just moved into this house too of like back in January, so like we're kind of still like not fully organized either. So basically, like this area directly in front of me has at least 12 cables and cords, and it's just a clusterfuck, right? So I have 2 Australian Shepherds in a Great Pyrenees, and I don't know how this is the first time this happened.
Yeah, I don't know either.
I'm in here getting the chair set up for Luke and moving some things around, and Luke's in the kitchen and he's just kind of finalizing his notes. And Casey, my female Australian Shepherd, just walks in and just fucks shit up.
Just like everything went with her.
Which
I didn't see. I just heard Jason just yelling.
I'm like, Casey, what are you doing? Dude,
I thought Jason was dying.
She was walking too. It's not like she was running. She came walking through and just casually she tripped over all the cables, pulled the MacBook entirely off the table. It slammed into the tripod. The tripod fell over.
Unapologetically herself.
Oh, dude, yeah. I'm crazy.
Yeah, she is crazy.
So yeah, that was what we just dealt with. But your point is true. It's like dogs have no shame. They're going to behave the way they want to behave, and that's the way it is. But
one other Jack Black thing. Okay, this is completely derailed.
We will eventually get to this episode.
I'm Luke. This is Jason. This is Two Sons Podcast. We talk a lot about Star Wars. Don't forget, this is not a podcast about dogs
Luke's lack
and
of
Jack
affinity
Black.
for famous people.
Yes.
Anyway,
one of my all-time favorite videos that I've ever seen of Jack Black. He's literally cruising around LA, and then he drives up to skateboarders that he doesn't know, and he just goes, "Do a kickflip." And then if they try a kickflip, he just hands them a skateboard and then just drives off.
I thought that was Tony Hawk that did that.
I think he did that too, but like
Jack Black actually started
definitely does. Like,
That's
do
dope.
a kickflip, like in his Jack Black voice.
That's very dope. I like Jack Black. I'm excited for School of Rock too. The original School. They're making a second School of Rock.
No way. We're definitely gonna break that down.
Yeah, we're gonna break that down.
Okay, cool.
We might have to do a School of Rock 1 rewatch.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Let's do it.
All right. So one of the biggest kind of like storylines that we've seen throughout this Mandalorian 3 seasons is, Din Djarin is the primary character, and like he's a badass in his own right.
Right.
Like he's certainly not a slouch. But like
he's got like major Wild West vibes, like good guy, carries his own weight. And will kick ass if he needs to, but doesn't try to. And
he doesn't have grand ambitions. He's very much just like he's very much like kind of in the background.
Yeah.
In like the storyline,
he stays
like,
in his lane.
Yeah, exactly. And the storyline is him and Grogu, but like Bo-Katan is like clearly a level above him as a Mandalorian combatant.
She's royalty too.
She's royalty. And we had seen scenes with her just messing people up with the Darksaber. She actually had possession of the Darksaber at one earlier point in time. So like we were always just wondering like, okay, and then she's also into the mythosaur, and we keep kind of looking at it like, okay, what's the deal? Is she going to go after this mythosaur thing? Like, what about the Darksaber? Like, is Din Djarin going to keep it? Every time Din Djarin uses it, he looks all like clumsy and
the Darksaber has rejected him. Yeah.
Exactly. So like we were wondering how it was going to turn out at the end of things, and there was a weird scene, and we identified it at the time.
We did
in our episode. But when Din Djarin gets captured on Mandalore and Bo-Katan saves him, there's kind of this weird moment where Bo-Katan picks up the lightsaber and messes up the droid and then sets it back down on the ground. And then Din Djarin like walks up and like they zoom in on him, like picking up that lightsaber and clipping it on his hilt, and they kind of flash back over to Bo-Katan's face, and she's kind of just sitting there watching him.
And they did a good job doing that into like the recap video. Like they made that very clear. So when I saw that, it was very, very clear. I was like, okay, we're gonna see that handoff again, and it's gonna be legitimate.
And it makes perfect sense to me because like Bo-Katan and Din Djarin are like legitimately like brothers in arms now.
Yeah.
And brothers and sisters in arms. And so the point is like they found a way to get the lightsaber over to Bo-Katan without having to have some sort of massive conflict between Din Djarin and her.
Between the two personalities or the two characters. Yeah.
Exactly. And now we're poised for Mandalore the Great.
Yes. Which
the
is
next
Bo-Katan.
It's going to be her on the damn mythosaur.
Just
lightsaber in hand, just
messing things up.
Yeah, just doing damage.
I wonder if they're gonna stay true homies or if there's gonna be some conflict, right? Like so, like nothing's perfect in movies and in shows, and there's always things that are put into the plot just to surprise us.
Filler.
Yeah. Well, not even filler, but just like
shock and awe.
Yeah. And I really hope that Din Djarin and Bo-Katan's relationship doesn't get ruined over just like needless, storyline.
I don't think we're going to see those two get into it.
I hope not.
I think that this ends with the two of them. Like I think that the fans are very thoroughly enjoying this vibe of Din Djarin and Bo-Katan working together, and I think they're going to try to maintain that.
Bo-Katan becomes Grogu's mama.
Yeah, basically, dude. They have like a cool vibe too. Like
they do have a cool
makes
vibe.
Little comments to him,
but everybody loves Grogu. Like everybody loves him.
The
Starship lady
approval rating.
Yes,
like, Grogu or Jack Black. People, which one would you? You had to erase one from popular culture. Who are we erasing?
Not Jack Black.
not Jack. Sorry, Grogu.
Sorry, Grogs. Not Jack Black.
You'd rather have Grogu die in Order 66 than lose Jack Black.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. No, I don't know. I do love Grogu, but dude, here's the deal. Like, there's so many amazing Star Wars characters that, like, no offense to anybody listening to our pod. Like, I know we have some true Star Wars fans, but like, Grogu's not in my top 10. I'll tell you that for sure.
I enjoy. I'm not anti-Grogu by any stretch of the imagination.
Neither am I. But like, never talk about him or Jack Black.
He's not, well. The problem is there's a limitation on how interesting he can be.
Yes, I agree.
So because what is he? 50 years old now?
Yeah, like 50. Probably now he's probably like 52.
So yeah, and so he needs to be like 150 years old to actually be like young Yoda, right?
Yeah, and we don't know how big he is in Star Wars plotline still.
But like. At the time of the First Order and everything going down, he's clearly not involved in the galactic picture.
Yeah, not that we know of.
Because they refer to Luke as the Last Jedi.
True.
So like the reality is, although Grogu got separated from the Jedi, but the point is like Grogu is basically a background character, and by the time he's actually an adult and capable of really inflicting his Jedi sorcery / Mandalorian,
even to talk.
Yeah, like to do anything is so far down the line that it's kind of like, now you might see at some point in the future them do a future show that involves Grogu as an adult, but I mean that's
or he might be one of the. They might be able to write him into like Star Wars lore as like a behind the scene character that like really did something huge for the rebellion or something like that we didn't know of. you know?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, like in a behind the scenes book. I actually kind of like when they do that because I don't know if you remember that from the High Republic books, but like we've read 4 High Republic books now, although Luke hasn't quite finished the 4th
Actually, I
yet.
just finished it.
You did?
But I want to do some more prep work on it before we talk about it in the show.
Yeah, we'll do a full episode on it. But like, I like how in those 4 books they've made passing mentions of Yoda because Yoda's like 500 years old at this point, right?
Right.
And they've made passing mentions to him, but they haven't like just shoehorned him into the storyline.
Right.
Like he's just back on.
Yeah,
Course
he's
on teaching
just
younglings,
an important figure.
And like people will be like, "Oh yeah, Yoda taught me this once," and then they'll like move on to the next thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm curious to see if they make Grogu a part of the bigger picture or not. So far, they really haven't.
No.
Now, one of the really cool characters that we got to meet was Axe Woves. So he kind of stepped up as an important figure for the Mandalorian group that had left Bo-Katan. And apparently they were incredibly powerful. Like, how many do you
Did you see the size of that fleet?
Huge. They had at least probably 4 to 5 Gauntlet class starfighters.
Yep.
They had what class of Imperial shuttle was that?
The big one is like one of their small, like kind of like frigate class cruisers. But they also had the one that they actually stole in that one episode. They had like 2 or 3 of those in the background.
You see them in the background,
too.
Yeah, so it was really cool.
So they've got
super
like
powerful.
a capital ship, smaller little like troop transports, and all these big Gauntlet class fighters, and probably, I mean, at one point on the screen you saw like 20 different Mandalorians,
which is funny too because the Children of the Watch like are a little bit hodgepodge, like they're a little bit like kind of pieced together. So I just envision like all those massive ships just rolling into Navarro, like landing, and then like the Children of the Watch just standing there with like a cup of beans, and be like. You guys are here, but
they're like, I'm so glad you're joining us in our endeavor to do something.
Have some beans. That's all we have, really.
We don't have ships, by the way.
We don't have ships, but we...
Oh, by the way, we're in charge of everything we do. Like, I get to order your ships around now.
No, I wonder how that goes down. That's a little bit odd, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean... Maybe the armor just has that type of cachet. Who knows?
Maybe.
Do you? Okay. I have my best guess would be that they roll up. They go back to Navarro. They join with the Mandalorians, and they all load up in these ships, and then they go to Mandalore. Is my guess.
Oh, you think so?
My guess is that when they enter the Mandalorian system, they're going to run into a legit full-size Star Destroyer. Okay, I'm just throwing random guesses.
Okay,
out here.
all right. You're wrong.
And there's going to be a massive space battle.
That'd be dope.
And then they're going to eventually make their way down to the surface.
Okay.
And there will be some sort of additional conflict there. And I would imagine in next episode we'll also get introduced to Moff Gideon. That's my guess. Do you have any sort of projection for the future here?
I think they made too big of a deal of the land ownership on Navarro to just write that out of the storyline. I'd like to think that, yes, I think there could be a huge space battle between Moff Gideon and the larger Mandalorian group that we got to meet. I think that's going to be more centric towards Navarro, though.
You think the final conflict's going to take place on Navarro?
Or around. That's my guess. And of course, like there's a very good chance, and we know this, we might be wildly wrong, right? But I think they it would be odd for the Children of the Watch to be like, "Hey, thanks for all the land. Peace out. We're going to Mandalore."
I get that, but like, I think that what's his name? Grief Karga would understand. Like,
he probably would.
He would, and I think that the Mandalorians would also kind of like. There's nothing to stop them from like kind of having a presence in both places.
True,
kind of like a marshal.
Yeah, they're pretty large now, right?
I also think we have to factor in that I think that this I say rebel, this Republic Marshal base with Zeb, which we have been confirmed is Zeb.
That is Zeb
directly from Star Wars.
Yes.
In their social media pages, like. I would love to see them get involved and have X-Wings involved in this conflict.
That would be really
I would
cool.
love to see
Mandalorians fighting next to X-Wings.
Yes.
It would be an absolute vibe.
Well, you can imagine.
Approved by Two Sons Podcast.
Yes,
if you will.
It would be 100% approved. Zeb fighting with a bow rifle on the surface of Mandalore would be pretty damn cool.
That would be cool.
Because you can imagine too, just like the way that they could in live action really kind of capture his size and his like physical position.
His phicality.
I would imagine that because again, you got to remember that this little marshal guy, I can't remember his name now, but the one who went to Coruscant to appeal for help.
Uh-huh.
You got to think that
Captain Tava.
Tava. He has like a real emotional investment in what's happening on Navarro too.
He's legitimately a good guy.
Yes, and he seems to think that there's an Imperial warlord involved.
Right.
So
which he's correct.
And obviously he was the one who discovered that Moff Gideon escaped. So I think it makes perfect sense that he would have a mutual interest with the Mandalorian grouping under Bo-Katan to try to remove Moff Gideon from the Mandalorian system entirely. And it's so perfectly set up for like a good space battle with X-Wings and everything, and a good planetary battle. Like it's perfectly set up.
It's set up beautifully. I think no matter where it happens, it's definitely set up for a giant battle with Moff Gideon and all of his troops.
I 100% agree. I'm very excited.
So I want to talk about the droid bar thing a little bit more.
Okay, let's get into it.
I love a good droid, like, which is like, in part because of the practical effects that we love with Star Wars, and there's this like level of jankiness that is within Star Wars that's totally within like allowable limits, right? Like we would rather have like a slightly like odd looking like mannequin controlled by like a puppet hand, like rather than CGI, right? That's just like what we're into. That's what we're used to. That's what's like kind of acceptable in like the Star Wars
like
universe.
The difference between iRobot CGI versus
That's a perfect example. That's a perfect example. So I actually loved the bar scene with the droids. I thought it was an odd spin. We know and here's why it's good. You look so disappointed. This is
make your
amazing.
case. I'm withholding opinion for
there's
now.
There's almost like different levels of droids, right? Like for example, we see droids that have a ton of personality. K2SO, Chopper, C3PO, R2D2. Then we see droids with way less personality. Battle droids in their own way, even though they do kind of have like a really goofy personality. Super battle droids don't have a whole lot of personality.
How about Jabba's droid that's in charge and puts R2D2 and C3PO to work? Like that kind of guy.
Yeah. So
where it's like he's just strictly protocol. Like,
just only protocol, no personality. Yeah. And there's even like mouse droids that we see. So there's like these varying levels of personality. So to me, if you could remember that and think about droids like K2SO, it makes sense that they'd want to have like a little area of respite where they could go and do their own thing. So like it's like if someone makes the argument like we'll pass on the droid bar, that's a little bit new and odd for us. Like I get it, but for me it totally worked. I thought it was cool.
Yeah, like I mean, okay, I cut Star Wars leeway on this sort of thing because at the end of the day, like Star Wars has a joint audience. So for instance, like the way I'd look at it is, if they made. If for instance, if they decided to make movies about Darth Bane, like that sort of thing, they'd have to cater towards an adult audience. It would have a dead serious, very dark kind of approach, right?
Yeah,
but
like, there'd intrinsically be like some really dark aspects of that story, no matter what. If they're actually going to do Darth Bane, like it would not be a kids show.
And I think we're going to learn really quickly from the Acolyte what direction they plan on going when they portray the Sith, which I'm super interested in. But when it comes to shows like Ahsoka, for instance, or The Mandalorian, or Boba Fett, or really any of these like kind of like mainstream Star Wars shows that have they have a wide berth and like and they kind of remind me of like Pixar movies where it's like there's a definitive like element to the content that's catered towards adults, like these layered jokes and these like cultural references. Right. But then there's like this lower stuff that's kind of like intended to please children. Yeah. And like that's kind of the way I look at some of these scenes where it's like I appreciate and I give a lot of leeway towards them kind of catering a portion of the show towards them and you just kind of give it a break. I think there's a line like I think even like Rian Johnson with the lobbing laser fire, for instance.
Garbage. Like as garbage as it gets in Star Wars.
It was literally one of my least favorite moments.
It's the worst atrocity in Star Wars, in my opinion.
That and the gravity well hyperspace jumps at the beginning of that movie.
Oh, that's a quick second.
At the beginning of the next movie, I should say.
Yeah.
But like the problem I have with it is like he's thinking to himself like, oh, like this to me is going to kind of have vibes like a naval we're at sea and like kind of thing, and he's trying to like send this imagery out, and what he doesn't realize is it crosses so far onto the other side that it's like not
right.
Yeah,
Which is why I would argue that he's not a true Star Wars fan.
No, of
he
course
did
not.
not know what he was doing.
No, of course
and
not.
He was making a Star Wars movie, which is ridiculous.
Plain and simple, there was one reason why he should never have done that. The first Star Wars scene ever recorded was the exact same thing. It was a Star Destroyer chasing a Corvette, off the just outside of a gravity well, and firing. They were exchanging turbo laser fire, and it was straight line fire. So like he just spit in the face of that.
Yep.
That said, within the context of this episode, I'm cool with it all. So when I'm complaining about this, it's just more just like
preference.
What I was thinking in the moment, not something that was actually really truly bothering me. But can you imagine if like Luke Skywalker was sitting in his little like room and he like peels the thing off of R2-D2 and they're talking, and then Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru are like, "Hey, come to dinner," and then C-3PO's like, "Peace out, I'm headed to the bar, bro." Like, just I'm
meeting some dudes at the bar.
I'm gonna go on a Nepenthe bender. Okay, like it just I just don't understand that specific like that
No,
to
I
me.
get it.
That to me was like I was like, okay, this is kind of weird.
No,
but
it is.
it felt what it felt like to me was like the textbook, and you and I have like used this reference before, but like the group sitting in the storyboard room and someone being like, you know what we haven't seen yet?
Yeah.
A bunch of droids hanging out in a bar, Like
I'm
that's
just glad
kinda,
that they didn't have like a little strip tease with one of the droids. Like that would have been way too much.
Oh yeah, dude. Oh, it would have been ridiculous.
Because like and you see like little strip teases in Star Wars like all over the place. Jabba's palace is one of them, right?
There's lots of sex workers in the Star Wars universe.
Lots. There was one part too, like speaking of the droid, storyline or whatever, that kind of just like ripped me out of Star Wars. Like, and that's a term for any of you like new listeners. Like, there's a term that we use, Jason and I, where like we feel like we're ripped out of the Star Wars universe when there's just something like just super distracting. And
well, you have to be bought into the universe. Like to really enjoy it, you've got to be bought in.
Yeah.
And there are elements that sometimes you're like, well, okay.
Jason and I talk about the Star Wars universe like it's real, just like sports commentators talk about WWE like it's real. You know what I mean? Like it's just like there's just like a level to it, like where we like bought into it. Like it's a big part of our lives. Like we both love Star Wars. That's why we have a podcast about it. Like right. So, but there was one part that kind of like ripped me out of that, and they're in that lab. And then they pull out that super battle droid as if it's like a carcass in a morgue.
Oh
right?
yeah, and it's in store. It's in literally like
it's in like cold storage, right? And then they like pull its fluids, its blood, if you will. And then they're like analyzing it. And in like the old like CSI or like NCIS, where like they're like trying to like look at like video footage and they're like enhance it. Yeah, and they're like enhancing, and then like all of a sudden like a really bad like video just gets like super crystal clear, and you can see who it is. Like that technology literally is impossible, by the way.
Yeah,
like,
it's literally impossible.
It doesn't make any sense. So like they kind of did that, like where like pull out the blood, and then they like put it like into what was like a makeshift centrifuge thing. That they actually do that with the blood to separate components of the blood, which was cool that they did that. But anyways, or human blood, I mean. But anyways, they're like analyzing it, and then for some reason, like all of this writing is on these, and they're on these like what type of droid is it? The nanodroids. Like who in their right mind would essentially like write down all that information about. And then about what the nanodroid is. Like, why would you ever put information on that small of a nanodroid on its capsule? Like,
and it was like a chain.
No
it was like a chain code.
I know. And then they're like, oh, because it's a chain code, we could see where it came in, like which port it came in, which also makes no sense. Like it was like a huge reach, and you can tell that they just like tried to layer it enough to where people just like wouldn't think about it.
Yeah, like if we add 4 or 5 layers, they'll just be like, I'm not even going to try. To
because it's
this.
Droid blood, and because it's under a microscope. And because it has writing on it, and because it's illegal to, bring, Nepenthe in from any other means, we know that it was illegal, and we knew it was directly related to this man. It's like, how did you guys do that? Like, it just didn't make any sense.
Well, and then also there's this thing in Star Wars, I don't know if you like caught on to this too, but like computers in Star Wars are ultra vintage. Like, obviously because George Lucas in the 70s was trying to like like trying to depict what a computer probably would look like.
Yes.
And that got established. It kind of reminds me
norm.
if any of you guys have ever played Fallout, like Fallout is like this alternate universe where basically the society advances in nuclear technology at a far faster rate than they do with transistor technology. So like everything is like has unlimited sources of power from nuclear energy, but all the computers are shitty.
Yes.
And like that's what it kind of reminds me.
There's like 4 buttons on Star Wars computers.
Yeah, well, like so,
right?
for instance,
Like it's which is the coolest thing in my opinion.
Exactly.
But yeah, we
like,
love that.
What's the Dr. Pershing when he's like messing around at his little console? Like the screen's like this big on it, and he's got like a bunch of buttons, and he's like sticking the code in, and they're like kind of like doing the buttons, and it's like that's Star Wars, and then suddenly it's like she's got like the Mission Impossible screen with all of like the
you know, it was just not super Star Wars.
Exactly. And again, we're just venting about stuff. Like again, I'm gonna give massive amounts of leeway with this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Especially
because they've done such a good
job. It's a different standard.
Exactly, it is. And they've done Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni and everybody who's been a part of the Mandalorian.
And you got
so
mad
far.
at me for mispronouncing Sabak, by the way.
Yeah, I know. That was a butchering of his name.
Jon Favreau.
They've done a fabulous job. So like this is literally just Jason and I being candid about our thoughts. Like this isn't trash talk by any means. Overall, like loved the episode. If I had to rate it, which we don't really do on this show, but if I had to rate it, I'd give it a solid 6.4. And that's a good rating. No, like in my opinion, like no, ratings are so out of hand in today's society. Like, oh, I'm not going to go to the doctor unless it's a 4.5 star out of 5s or higher. It's like, no, like there was an incredible episode. Like last episode, which I loved, was probably like a 9.3. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what a 10 would be. You know, that'd just be off the charts. It'd be probably unachievable. It'd be perfect, which there's nothing.
You'd have to have Luke Skywalker mess up a bunch of droids on his way upstairs.
I'd have to watch the episode with George Lucas himself for it to be a 10. Okay. Like
Luke's become very jaded by stuff.
No.
I'm just kidding.
No, it was an incredible episode. Very side questy. Most of it was side questy just for the big token of
with the big token at the end.
Bo-Katan,
an important one.
And a very important token. Yeah. Overall, it's a great episode. I'm just, my scoring system's probably just a little bit skewed compared to like average scoring systems.
I did not even think about rating it, but yeah, I'd probably go like 6 or 7 out of 10 if I had to.
Which is solid.
So before we get out of here, I want to, did you have any kind of like residual thoughts from the Bad Batch season 2? Just about kind of like where you think that fits into the Star Wars universe, whether or not you think Bad Batch is worth it in terms of like the effort that Star Wars is putting in. Do you just have any lingering thoughts from that?
I would like to know how much it costs to produce Bad Batch. I'm sure it's incredibly expensive. Like probably if you and I threw out a number, it'd probably be way lower than what we could even fathom.
The animation, I would imagine. Like, there's got to be some studio. I don't know if they contract out an animation studio or if it's like part of Lucasfilm, like they have their own people on staff. That would be an interesting question to figure out. Because I do know that they, like Marvel, for instance, outsources a lot of their animation,
which is Disney.
Well, yeah. Well, this is actually crazy. Like I was watching, what was the most recent Marvel movie that came out? Ant-Man, I think. And the vast majority of the movie is CGI because there's like all these different like multiverse settings that you're in watching. At one point, like all the characters are like walking through these various parts of the multiverse, and you're getting introduced to Jonathan Majors, who's playing Kang the Conqueror. Probably going to end up getting recast after what happened.
Oh, I don't know.
He had a crisis, yeah. But essentially.
I don't care about famous people, so
yeah.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Luke's, I was done with Jonathan Majors as soon as he got famous. Forget about the domestic violence stuff. So basically, anyway, like at the end of the movie, because you know with Marvel, you're always like, and I've grown annoyed by it now. Where it's like I have to wait till the end of the damn credits to see the final cutscenes, you know, and they have 2 of them in every single. Like they'll show like a third of the credits, and then they'll show a cutscene, and then they'll do like the long form credits, and then they'll do another cutscene.
Yeah.
And so I'm sitting there and I'm watching, and like I shit you not, they contracted out like a dozen different animation studios.
Oh, where you got to see them all with their like, because all of them have like a 5-second little reel that they put on if they're a part of any movie, right?
Well, I would imagine from a time perspective too, like let's use Bad Batch for an example. Over the course of one season, you know, they might have all those voice actors come in for like 3 weeks and just record all the episodes and be done. Yeah. You know, so then they go like, okay, we've got 37 visual scapes that we need to create. Like, you can go to your one studio and they can go one by one through them.
Sure.
Or you can be like, hey, here's 6 scapes for this company. Here's 6 for this company. Here's 6 for this company. Like, I would imagine that's the way they do it.
Keeping it the same though. I mean, that's one of the reasons.
Keeping the same theme.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I really like it is because like it's never like you don't watch different episodes and feel like they're different studios. You know what I mean? That's a good question. Yeah.
Well, so sometimes I wonder too. Are you familiar with the concept of like a game engine?
No.
So, like for instance, and I'm not an expert on this. So if there's somebody who's listening, but like for instance, if you play Call of Duty, there's like an engine that runs the game.
I see.
And like once you plug in the models, like the engine kind of does everything
else. It's almost its own little world, and you just kind of like plug in your needs, and then the formatting's already set up for you.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think Clone Wars kind of has an engine vibe to it where like everything kind of has like a similar stylistic kind of concept, like just the way jaw lines are done, the way hair is done, the way
that's true.
Like the way like the lighting is in these scenes.
Well, and you see a lot of clones, right? And those are all the same essentially. Yeah.
Exactly. So I wonder if they have like a base engine for the way that they do it, and then and then they let these studios go with more of like the creativity elements of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, like there's no doubt that it's probably very expensive.
Yeah. So yeah, to answer your question, I do think it's worth it. Just because we know that Dave Filoni is kind of on cleanup duty and trying to make the whole entire cloning portion of Star Wars normal. So like that's honestly what Bad Batch is about. Like you can make the argument, and it's partially about, you know, Clone Force 99 and Omega. Sure. But like really that is all promoting through their stories. That's promoting the storyline, the major overarching storyline of cloning is normal in Star Wars Galaxy.
Yeah. It's setting up the stage for Palpatine's cloning story. It's, telling the story of how the clones were phased out.
Yeah.
It's a lot of early Empire politics, which I think is cool.
Yep.
And then, like you said, they're telling all that story through the scope of of Bad Batch. And,
right.
And you get interested in the characters, and then they kind of take it home from there. I will say that I genuinely enjoyed it. I think that the show is at its best when it focuses on the big scale.
Agreed.
It's at its best when it's not just the Bad Batch doing another mission,
side quest,
but more like
that's some of those episodes were the epitome of a side quest.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And like when you're seeing Tarkin and you're seeing Imperial politics and Palpatine shows up and he messes shit up, like that is when the show's at its best, and that's when Star Wars is generally at its best, and that's why like trapping yourself in a timeline is so dangerous. Is like you run into the situation where you're telling a lot of unimportant stories.
Right.
But overall, like I enjoyed it way more than I did season 1. For starters, I actually watched every episode. Season 1, I missed some of the episodes towards the end. I'm actually invested now. It's not my favorite piece of Star Wars content ever, but I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, I've been loving it. Yeah, it's been really neat to see it, I think. I for all of our listeners too, Jason and I probably next week or sometime later this week we'll talk about Convergence, which is the most recent High Republic book that we listened to. For anybody that wants to listen to it, you can get it on the app bookstore, like the Apple app bookstore. And what Jason and I do is we actually crank up the speed. So
it's like 1.25.
Yeah, we crank up the speed that it's read by up to 1.25, and it cuts off like hours, and you don't really lose any of the essence of like how the book feels. You actually get very used to listening to it.
Mark Thompson reads slowly.
He does.
So the 1.25 actually really helps. Audio, highly recommend the audiobooks.
Yeah,
for sure,
it's incredible work. Very well produced. So we'll be getting into that pretty soon here. And did you have anything else? Any other big things?
Let's see. We've got and then there's another new a High Republic book coming out, I think, this week.
Sweet.
But yeah, we'll we'll be back next week, and we'll cover. We'll either do an episode before then, or we'll do it as the second half of the next week's episode. But we'll talk a little bit about Convergence, and then honestly, we're in Mandalorian for right now, and then when that's over, we'll find something else to kind of flow into until Ahsoka comes in July.
Yeah. And again, like, we've been getting so much support lately.
Yeah, it's been awesome. It's
been really, really cool. Like, again, like, thank you so much for you guys' comments. We get a huge kick out of reading all of them. Also, for everybody that's been congratulating me on being a dad, like, thank you. Really, it's been cool.
Unless you're famous.
Unless you're famous, I don't really care. But no, in all honesty, like, thank you for the engagement. Jay and I will be, messaging you guys back. Jason runs our YouTube platform. So if he says anything that's like rude to you or
it's
belittling, it's all Jason. It's really not me. So I'm the nice guy out of Jason and I.
And I'll try to do a better job of responding to It's just, to be honest, I'm just absurdly busy.
Well, So when Jason says that, it's actually true. Like, Jason puts in really, really late nights covering the NBA, and then he wakes up and does this show with me, and our schedules need to match up, and it actually does take a lot to do this, and even though it's a lot of fun, it's definitely, we put in a lot of effort into this. So, but honestly, thank you so much, and we're super grateful for you.
Yeah, believe it or not, I think this is like our 57th episode.
It's good, and we've almost at our year anniversary, I believe. Yeah,
I'm getting there.
So it's pretty cool.
All right, guys, as always, we appreciate you guys. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and we will see you guys next week.
Thanks a lot.